When is the planned blockchain launch? Despite numerous discussions,
The start of the blockchain, you really have to see that it could start at any time, with a little exaggeration. However, it is not solely about the level of preparedness of the market for each individual feature. So, in order for the blockchain to go and initiate the process of sending cryptocurrencies, it has the potential to occur at this very moment. And Petit, please correct me if I am wrong, but in my opinion, this is the place where we are performing the most poorly. And from a technological point of view, the documentation doesn't even hinder the start. So in order for a project to come and develop something on the Mosaic chain, the developers need the documentation. So these are still pending. And by the way, we still want to accomplish a lot of tasks. By the way, I have an inquiry regarding the impact of this new development on various aspects. Story, so the chain can start on time. We're uncertain if it's reasonable to initiate it at a stage when things aren't functioning yet, like this decentralized explorer isn't operational or any other issue. So we'll need to contemplate intensely what the reasonable course of action is, but we must carefully evaluate all the factors before arriving at a final decision. But I can confidently say that we're doing well with the blockchain.
We're in good shape technically. Without Explorer, it obviously doesn't make much sense to start a blockchain in my experience, because no one else will run Explorer in the 0th round. What remains to be done, and what is often overlooked by outsiders, is that you also have to actively participate in the other projects that are ongoing. Today, I had a meeting with the XX team, the Polkadotters, about the fact that we really need to start moving in that direction. This is because now we have reached the level of development where we know exactly how we will connect to the Polkadot chain, mainly. The meeting was crucial in discussing our plans and ensuring alignment with the Polkadotters' vision for the project. Well, if they don't change this in the next few months, then there is such an ambition, but as slow as it usually stays, the developments in crypto, although this is not true for Polkadot, I dare not wait for it or bet that by the time the chain starts, this new technique that Polkadot is developing for connection will go live. Hence, the key point is that we have just agreed that we need to commence the final phase of negotiations in the smart ecosystem as soon as possible in order to join and become a part of it without any additional delay or hesitation. This signifies that there are projects that we would like to collaborate on. There are comrades with whom it is of utmost importance to maintain transparent communication. And here we need to come to agreements so that in the case of a transaction initiated from our chain, for example, the fit should reach the other parachain to execute the transaction. Obviously, this is mutual, back and forth. We provide liquidity, they provide tokens with price pledge. Currently, we are considering collaborations, and we need to acquire the Polkadot parachain slot, which implies that on one hand, we have an obligation to take part in a Polkadot parachain slot auction, and the technical preparation for this has also commenced and is currently underway. The decision has been made that as soon as possible, we will acquire the slot. We won't wait for their chain launches or shoot down any uncertainty factor, so this is the direction that has started now. Obviously, there will not be a departure prior to the slot. And one more important thing, first, we will set up a standalone testnet once we have reached the level where we don't reset the network content just because we are developing and tinkering with it. Then we will connect the standalone testnet to one of the relay chain testnets, which is currently the Roca code, but it will either cease to exist or undergo reorganization. So it's certain that it will be. Therefore, our plan is to conduct thorough testing of the overlay network on the testnet level. Our goal is to join as a Polkadot parachain and establish a connection with Polkadot itself using our relay chain, which we anticipate will be reserved by that time for seamless integration and optimal performance. This is approximately the way in which the chain starts.
Thanks. In the meantime, I instructed you not to send me any more requests. But if it fits and I can quickly read it, and if you try to answer briefly like this, I will appreciate it greatly. Why isn't the codex listed anywhere in the USDT liquidity pool, for example, Gecko terminal?
Yeah, so on the listing pages, I was also involved in things, right? There were technological hurdles and obstacles to overcome in order to achieve that. To enable the listing pages to gather information about the Mosaic Alpha in the same manner as they are accustomed to on a traditional decentralized exchange, DEX, it was imperative to create daily access points. At first, I think the question of why there is no listing for any TOSDA is deliberate, but that was the plan from the very beginning, that it would be like this for a while. And just recently during this week, we held a meeting where we gathered the points to measure when we start listing. Because in the long run, we have to be present on the centralized platforms as well, because this is what the ecosystem, the platform uses. So the listing pages are coming soon and will be introduced to ensure our presence and compatibility with the centralized platforms in the future. And by the way, the TOSDEX will also come, so we will definitely be there with 2 or 3 good TOSDEX. So we are not talking about the non TOSDEX, but rather the well-known TOSDEX that everyone is familiar with. However, I am unable to provide you with the precise timing for pressing the button, although it will not be a lengthy wait at this point in time.
Does the number of LP2 tokens received depend on when the LP2 package is purchased, for example, at 40,000 or 50,000 BTC?
Of course, it's different because you see BTC is on one side of the basket, which is the value that people put into the LP token. If someone buys at 50,000, they will get fewer LP tokens than someone who buys at 40,000 or 45,000 proportionally.
If you exclusively need the NFT for the DPoS validator, at what specific moment does it deduct the penalty in offline mode? Is it possible to stake the released MOS coins in the Novalos DPoS system to increase its own DPoS income? If so, how can this be done and what are the benefits of doing so?
If you're not down with it, then
Tell me, I didn't hear the first part, so let's answer based on what's in your head right now if you have the complete question in your mind.
okay, so yeah, these things, you have to understand that NFT is essentially a programmable token. You can put anything in it, like practically anything. This will simply be solved by having a value called X, which represents the number of Mosaic coins with a certain value of NFT. The system can deduct the penalty from that, and it can be replenished with real Mosaic coins.
Okay, therefore we should invest the coins we have freed up in Moscow to make them grow?
If you're already free, then without further ado, this is the best we can do. We can't access it until it's released.
How liberating, how worth it to talk about it. Attila says it very well, and the questioner sees it very well too.
Per the NFT stake solution, after chain launch, all will keep getting equal reward as now, ensuring same weekly distribution in the pool for everyone.
So there, all individuals receive a proportional amount, depending on whether they have a POS or DPoS validator, and it is not possible to begin with the assumption that the numbers will be completely different, but validators will continue to receive the rewards on an ongoing basis.
In a webinar yesterday, they mentioned that the LP2 release is expected in 1-2 months. It was stated that the release will occur when the user base reaches 1 million, similar to the current situation. One thing is for sure, it's a longer process because even the LP1 upload took from October to June. Is there any other factor besides the upload that affects the duration? Because if someone wants a larger package, they may need more time than 1-2 months.
I'm unsure I comprehend the question.
Well, his consideration is whether the duration of liquidity pool 2 being open has any impact on other factors, in addition to what you mentioned, that we will shut it down once it reaches that specific value, correct? But besides that, because there was a webinar yesterday, someone gave a webinar and it was mentioned that it will only be available for a month or two. It took a while.
I mean, I consider it quite optimistic for it to come together in a month's time, but if the money comes together within a month, it's disadvantageous if the validator is too big, so it needs to be stopped at that point in time. I would not have dared to make a prediction about the weather, but I am sorry. I would not have had the courage to make a prediction about the weather, but I truly cannot predict the unpredictable. So there's no deadline.
At what time can we anticipate purchasing the nodes?
Well, then reveal it. Actually, I do not really know what perspective I am thinking from right now. Probably the question is about when we acquire those nodes, which, are given the very first package at the very beginning point in time. Well, as you know, our testing is narrowed down to 2 pieces of hardware. We will be testing and comparing the last 2 devices in order to make a final decision. We will most likely place an order for them at some point around the middle of the year. So I think we'll order them sometime in early summer when everything is really solid, because it's not really worth it before that, due to the fact that it is not worth the investment in the long run.
Will the Mosaic coin also have a liquidity pool? Are you planning a big shopping spree for Mosaic coins too?
Yeah, but at the moment we still have no knowledge of what the conditions will be like in that place and how it will be worth the effort.
Can we already know at what pace the quantity of the released Mosaic coin will be credited? Daily, weekly, monthly, or even in percentage form?
As I previously mentioned, depending on the size, 2 hyphens are roughly equivalent to a span of 4 years. So you can actually calculate from this information how much it is per week, approximately per week, giving you an estimate of the weekly amount. Based on our plans, the focus on the problems related to my release is approximately average at about 1.5%.
If Mosaic coins are only released over the course of years, then where will future interested parties be able to buy them in the meantime? Will there also be a pool at this location, correct? We somewhat addressed this earlier. Will there be a public testnet available? Is it possible that there might be an airdrop event occurring when the Mosaic is officially launched and made available to the public?
There will be a public testnet, but no airdrop. There will be a significant amount from the airdrop.
I'm sure it won't happen. For such a purpose, it is probably worth utilizing programs such as ambassador programs and similar minimal amounts of funds to attract individuals from the community with a minimal amount of money. But ultimately, it expanded and has not yet come into existence. It is completely impossible for it to happen. A forest composed of a mosaic of art or decorative pieces, with a significant amount of money visibly integrated, is not advantageous or beneficial to anyone in any way, shape, or form. So, when they throw it in your face like that, it generally doesn't hold much meaning or significance in most cases or situations that arise.
If someone stakes all the Mosaic coins they receive in their own delegated proof of stake DPoS validator, will their reward experience a significant increase? So if someone is already staking 100,000 points alongside NFT, then it's basically nothing compared to what the original NFT is already producing?
If the original NFT is $100, then yes.
However, this is entirely proportional. Therefore, it is simply proportionate. Yes, certainly. Therefore, if it is significantly larger in comparison to NFT, then it is preferable. Yeah, if they messed up 1,000 times more mosaics than the number of validator NFTs, then their river will be 1,000 times larger. And compared to that, this is dwarfed.
I have a final inquiry that is intricate and directly relevant to the project at hand, and I also extend my sincere thanks to the person who posed this thought-provoking question. I would have asked this myself because in the past period I have received several phone calls and emails about a gentleman on TikTok who is actually a networker, and so In the blog, he is pushing it with 8,000, and it is like this Mika ready project. So as we know, the Mika regulations have not even started yet, and you have already talked about it, but it is visible that after this question came up, what consequences can we expect from the regulations planned by the European Union, which is commonly referred to as the EU? I would greatly appreciate it if you could explain it again, especially for those who haven't heard before. I'm curious how this relates to Mika's current situation, which is described in more than 400 pages. Regrettably, 560, the way in which it applies or does not apply to us, because you are aware it confuses a lot of people. This gentleman is pushing it and then the videos properly and without actually saying it. But for example, he talks about not trusting decentralized systems because they do not have a background of ownership. And I could list these things. But regarding Mika here, if we could fix this a bit, I would appreciate it. Please, guys, no more questions, not enough space. Already someone wrote one, a total of 24 questions.
Okay, so you're familiar with Mika, correct? They have accepted, and now it is partially in effect. The current version of Mika and the things that will come into effect in the future absolutely do not regulate decentralized solutions yet in any way, shape, or form, under any circumstances or conditions. So if we were to start from the assumption that there will never be any changes to this, then we shouldn't do anything. However, we do not commence from this point, but rather we make an effort to prepare for the manner in which this will undergo changes. It is certain that it will experience alterations. Therefore, since October, he has been employed by a reputable legal company in England that is highly familiar with cryptocurrencies from both a technological and legal perspective. Furthermore, he is expected to arrive at any moment now. The study they conducted, which takes into account where we want to go in the future, considers the fact that if, for example, a centralized entity like a bank wants to launch a system on the Mosaic chain, so how should it work? There are diverse kinds of rules here, commencing with how to publish the data in order to comply with the rules and regulations that are in place. This can be significant for every participant. We are preparing for these. We will receive information about this in the near future. It will become evident from that the precise manner in which we will proceed will be clarified, but it signifies that we will also obtain permits that we are presently not obligated to in order to more easily manage them in the future. However, as I mentioned earlier, according to Mika, we do not currently need any licenses, as there is no license that can be obtained for decentralized systems.
At this moment, the question arose within me as to whether it is feasible that, for instance, a crypto Ponzi story such as this would obtain Mika's authorization or consent. So, it does not depend on whether Mika has permission or not. Smooth. I truly believe that this is one of the most crucial aspects in my perspective, and when you encounter this here, I believe this is the sentence that you should always remember in your mind.
Globex had all sorts of permits, and you could list these various broker companies like this. It doesn't rely on this, but you definitely have to think long term, and it is essential to consider the future implications. And the legal side of the matter must be built up as well. Well, what we don't want is for decentralization to be compromised or suffer at our expense, but with what we can bring in as additional extras, it could definitely be a suitable choice for a centralized player, the Mosaic decentralized blockchain. However, it's important to consider what this ecosystem caters to and be prepared for it.
I thank you very much. I said not to have any more questions, but earlier when we were talking about the stakeholder, the validator regarding the DPS, I see that it's not clear, and I would be happy if the person who wrote this would be replaced, in their place. So you're saying that he doesn't have any other packages, just this Validator Pro package, and that's why he's asking. If he is able to sneak into my computer, oh no, do not write that. I am sorry. I just have to determine precisely what you wrote at some point and translate it in that manner. Yeah, so if they acquire an NFT that they can insert into the validator's machine, it signifies that their NFT has a value of $25,000.
Not necessarily. Otherwise, it will have a higher value, because $25,000 will be insufficient for any player in the market to acquire an adequate amount of equipment in order to commence operating a deposit validator, which is why it is crucial to ensure a higher budget for this purpose. In this particular aspect, certainly not, as that NFT holds greater value, considering the fact that the corresponding right is permanent, thereby making it an enduring right that lasts indefinitely. You possess knowledge in this location.
So in this case, we need to clarify whether the gentleman is referring to the validator, which represents the authorization of the validator, or the talkable non-fungible token, which is a unique digital asset.
No, not the validator.
Okay, let me apologize because I didn't have a clue, so I just threw it in, but then I'm talking about NFT validator. Good, okay.
Well, the brief response is actually negative. That is of greater value.
And in connection with this, there is one more thing that you mentioned, that the stake ratio varies. And in connection with this, he inquired if, for example, the NFT is valued at $25,000. You stated it is worth more, but let's assume 25,000. And if he stakes 25,000 Mosaic coins, does it double?
In short, yes, but in reality, it's not entirely accurate due to the fact that, because you see, a consistent quantity of Mosaic coins is continuously being released into the river, and you must compare it to that ratio to ascertain the overall number of painted tools, regardless of whether they are NFTs or other types of assets. And when compared to the total amount of non-fungible token assets, if the others I do not have knowledge of contribute 800 or 1,000 validators, and if he doubles his own contribution, then his ratio to the whole will not be exactly double, because the overall amount has also increased. Although I am unaware of his specific contribution, and the mathematical calculation was understandable if we simplify it and do not desire to complicate it further. If you want to be punctual, it means that you double it.
Thank you very much. The person who asked the question also replied saying thank you very much and everything is completely fine. So thank you very much for being present tonight and providing assistance to everyone in organizing things. And I sincerely hope that's how it transpired. But as we discussed, there will be additional discussion about it. And you are aware that validation remains an extremely important aspect, as we previously talked about. As we carry out this task, and thus a minor joint cryptoclasm like this will take place as we progress, and there will be further details and updates regarding it.